Hey there, it is day 29. Everyone here is headed off to bed, so I'm going to quick do this and do the same. It was a pretty cool day. You might notice the makeup. That's kind of been unusual lately. And I actually have my contacts in, so I got my big purple glasses on. Um, but I did make it to the funeral. I debated whether or not I should go and kind of hoped that maybe by having one more soprano, it would help the song that the choir sang just feel a little bit stronger. So I did get all dressed and fixed and headed out. I couldn't believe that only 10 days from surgery, I was out there singing this hymn that actually had the sopranos go a little higher than I might have normally anticipated, and I was able to hold most of it. First go around was pretty good. By the time we sat in the sanctuary, about 30 minutes, and I went to try it again, my voice was a little bit more tired, and I was a little more tired. I learned that there are limits to being out right now, that this incision that still has stitches in it can actually really hurt. Right before I went in, I tightened I have a brace that I'm wearing, and I tightened it up, and I think I tightened it too much, but then I was up in a choir setting in a choir robe, and I couldn't really loosen it easily, so I finally had to leave halfway through. But it was just a sweet time to sit in a room with a bunch of people that just haven't been together in the same room in forever. Pastor Jeffords was a pastor out here in Douglasville since we came here in the early 70s. He's been a part of the church that my parents have been at, and I think they say that he came maybe, I'm not sure how long he'd been here before that. Honestly, I should have looked that up, but he was a pastor at First Presbyterian for a good 25 years, probably a little bit more than that. And then he retired, walked away for a year, but then he was such a great guy that he was able to come back and just be a part of the community, and not, and never threaten the new pastors who came or cause a stir. He was just a good man. So what was kind of neat today is, like, for one, my sister and I grew up singing in the choir. As we got older, she was more of a tenor because it was a small church. So I was soprano with mom, or second soprano, and then Laura was often was the tenor or alto. And today we sat next to each other in the choir loft with choir robes on. I can't even imagine how long it's been since I've been able to do that with my sister. Mom and Dad and I have done several gigs out here together, but not with Laura. So that was really special, and it was special because she was really good at helping to take care of me. I forgot, like when they say, for those who are unable to stand, stay seated, but the rest of you stand. I probably should have stayed in my seat, but I just didn't want to. And then I quickly learned that going up and down too many times, 10 days post-abdominal surgery with back, well, it's really a back surgery, but they went in abdominally, it's not a good idea. So Laura helped me hold my cane. And so anyway, we just kind of worked it together, and she got to where I was able to kind of hold that up and get up, because I can't even reach over. That's part of where I am right now, is there's no bending, lifting. It's BLT, bending, lifting, twisting. So I can't like lean over in a seat and pick something up. I can't reach that far and do all that. So, but it was just a really sweet time with her, with a lot of people, just people who've come from all over. Some people said it was kind of like stepping into a time machine. And there's just something really special about taking that time, almost like a homecoming, a family reunion, if you might. A lot of people just taking a moment to see each other and say hi. And I'll tell you this, my husband actually says that everyone should go to a funeral about once a month. And I don't know that I'm into the once a month, but I do believe that there's something about going to a funeral that, as sad as it is, and it was funny, I was feeling rather stoic and all together until I left the sanctuary after we had sung our song, and I walked out and I just fell apart. It's that just emotion, the bittersweet, the beauty, and the sad. They had just been some great eulogies about him and who he was, and people said they felt like our church lost its granddad, and or maybe even its dad. I don't know. Maybe that's the way to better say it. But there's just something about sitting in a room and spending time thinking about someone who's lived their life, gotten through it, but yet stayed the course to the very end. And Leon did that well, and you could tell by the number of people who really worked to be there, who came from afar to be there, who he ministered to in their time of need, and just made a difference in their life and in their world. So, I just, as hard as it was a beautiful reminder of what we're looking for, where we're headed. And I'll end it by, I don't know if you've read the news, you may have recently, that this guy, I don't remember his name, but he was 27 years old. He decided he would go preach Jesus to this remote tribe in India, and just felt really called to do that. And the headlines have been there. He was killed. What I enjoyed about reading today is they actually have dug further into his journal, and he actually had gone and then was able to kind of get away the first day when they started shooting at him. But had a setup where there were some fishermen where he could row his kayak or his canoe away to where these fishermen were, and then come back in and try again. And his journal the night before he was killed is just filled with, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I think maybe in some way he really thought he was going to be able to go in there and Jesus was going to do something, and he was going to be able to stand there and declare the glory of God. Was he naive? Was he called? He certainly felt called, and those who knew him and talk about him seemed to say that he seemed like a rational, very kind, easy person to be around, who just really loved Jesus and wanted to give his life for something important, I guess. So, he, I don't think though that he thought he would necessarily die doing it, and he did. But there's something crazy because, with I don't know, I once smuggled Bibles into China and thought I'd be doing bigger things like that. I do have that adventurous soul. And but now I'm, of course, more cautious with the health and the issues. Getting to a funeral today to celebrate somebody who lived 85 years, was a big feat. But there's just, again, it reminds me that I'm not sure what, Leon left a legacy just living day on day. Pastor Jeffords did. Just ministering to those, being there for people, being a kind, gentle, loving soul who just met the needs in a community for over 50 years. And in doing that, he changed things. And then there's this guy who gave his life, going into the unknown. He just decided, I'm going to be the one. Jesus is going to use me to go into this faraway place, and I'm going to make a difference. And yet he's gone at 27. I kind of have a feeling his story will reverberate with some of us going, man, he was willing and he wanted to, and he was, it's a different way to go than the way that Mr. Jeffords went. But both of those lives, whether you're living out the longevity of a life in a community, even if it seems kind of safe, you're just meeting the needs around you, man, there's a lot to be said about that. There's also a lot to be said about following some crazy calling on your heart that takes you someplace farther away that you don't even understand. I doubt that guy understood when they, wrapped a rope around him and pulled him into the jungle, why he was just walking into his death. But he'd written a letter to his parents and family and said, look, don't be mad at God. Don't be mad at these people if they kill me. He knew what he was doing. He didn't want to die, but he knew what he was doing. So the challenge remains being willing to follow our call, to follow his leading in us. Even for a lot of us, it's just staying right here, ministering in our community. For some of you, it's to go further, to risk more, to trust more. And not that staying doesn't require a lot of trust, because sometimes it just takes a lot of trust, just doing the day in and day out work of living and ministering and trying to encourage each other. But anyway, I'll just tell you, it was pretty cool today to be able to be there, to be well enough to have enough alertness. I'm wondering what they did to my anesthesia, because it sure seems like I've got more clarity of mind than I typically do. It also could be the drugs, the painkillers are a little bit different. Of course, they are still helping, but I do have them stretched out quite a bit, so I'm hoping I'll be able to wean off of them soon. Anyway, not sure how to wrap it up. It was just a sweet day. a sweet day of remembrance. My dad asked me right before we left, "Okay, you're my daughter. I got to ask you two questions. One, he asked something like, is this, should you really be doing this?" I looked at him and I said, "Well," or he says, "Are you sure that you should be doing this?" And I said, "No, I'm not sure if I should go." And then he said something like, do you feel like you need to, or, called to it? And I said, yes. The second question I said yes to. But, I couldn't sit there and say that I knew I had to go, and yet I'm so glad I went. It was more for me than anybody else to just be in the room with so many faces and so many people that have been part of my journey, to celebrate this man, for us to stop and turn our hearts towards somebody whose life was lived well, to remember that, and then to come back to our own, determined to do the same. So, happy Thanksgiving. Eat some turkey. Try to enjoy your families. I know sometimes that's harder than people think, but try. Find one little way to see things a little different than you're expecting to. All right, sure appreciate you guys. It's closing out for day 29. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.